You're welcome along to the Maroon and White pod. I'm delighted to be joined by Fintan O'Toole of the 42.ie to look ahead to Loughrea and Ballygunner in the All-Ireland Club final this weekend. Fintan, first off, a lot of this final has been overshadowed obviously by Cullen Killeen sending off and looks like he's going to miss Sunday now, unfortunately.
It does, yeah. It's a huge shame for any player to miss out on an All Ireland final. Miss out on any game, I suppose, at this stage of the competition. The fact that it dragged on, what was it, 21st of December, the semi-finals were, and I was actually at the other semi-final that day, the Ballygunner St Martin's. But I mean, talking to a couple of people who were at the game, working as journalists at it, like they said, it was as if almost Loughrea had lost afterwards. Obviously, it coloured the mood so much. It is a very tough thing for a kind of player to go through, especially a kind of a young player. I suppose it was an unusual incident as well, in the fact that there was no video footage of it. So unless something has circulated that one of the teams had it with the kind of high behind camera. But as we're chatting here now on the Tuesday night, the understanding is that he is not going to be available. And it's fundamentally a huge loss for the team. He's been a huge part of Loughrea's progress over the last couple of years. The kind of family injection of talent, between himself, Tiernan and Cayman, and the kind of chemistry that they have there around the middle, has been a major addition. And it's a setback for Loughrea. And I suppose, in a way, if a team has a guy who's injured and he's out, maybe you kind of park it and you put it to one side. They're a mature and experienced team, and I imagine the management be keen not to let it be a distraction. But unfortunately, these things happen for different reasons. I mean, I was looking last week at the intermediate final up at Churchill and Ban when they won the match and went up to collect the trophy. Their captain, he had Paddy Green had got injured in the semi final, and he was collecting the trophy, and he obviously wasn't hogged out. And the same thing actually happened in the intermediate football final from Gaeltacht. Their captain, Franz Sauerland, that had happened a good bit previously. He'd been out injured, but it is just the way these things, unfortunately, in club campaigns. You've absentees for different reasons. So I presume the message within the Loughrea camp is that, well, it's obviously you're kind of feeling for a teammate and you've empathy towards them. You probably don't want it to distract from the job at hand and kind of interfere with your preparation too much.
The footage point is interesting, isn't it? Obviously, Loughrea can't get it over the line for, I suppose, Cullen Killeen to play to maybe prove in the footage that there was maybe no strike there that Johnny Murphy thought there was. But then obviously nobody's actually seen the footage of the incident for Cullen Killeen to get sent off.
Yeah, and uh, and it has to be official footage as well, because this came up last year. And I remember in the Ulster final, there was kind of mobile phone footage taken of the incidents in the wake of that Donegal Armagh game, but that's not admissible, So if you are to try and get someone off, it has to be kind of proper, kind of verified footage, TV, in order to show it and to try and get the ban overturned, So, and I suppose, look, the nature of when it happens in the game is probably the difficult thing for Loughrea to swallow, in the sense that, like, the game was done and dusted. Their passage to the All-Ireland final was assured, and then something like that happened. So yeah, it looks like at this stage now, it's a difficult thing, but you kind of have to, when we haven't seen the incident, you kind of have to take it from what the referee and the linesman, that what they saw and that they deemed it a striking action. And like I said, for the player himself on a personal level, it's obviously hugely disappointing, and for their team. But I presume that, like, well, the appeal would have been handled by kind of one wing of the club, chairman, secretary, or whatever. Kind of officers are looking after that. From the management point of view, once this happened, once they had already won the game, obviously, I imagine it was just full steam ahead in terms of the 4 weeks progress once you got Christmas over the way, in terms of looking towards the final. Because obviously, this group was there last year at that stage of the semi final. They would have felt that disappointment, so they went one better this time, and that has to be the overriding focus. And that's like I mentioned, that upper church and Gaeltacht situations, and they talked about that. That is the ultimate thing. If a player misses out, it is an element of, you just have to try and move on, and different circumstances. But I suppose Loughrea saw that in the semi final. Darren Shaughnessy, very key for them in
Mm.
the county final. And I'm trying to think, sorry, Vince Morgan, wasn't it, that came in to kind of start. I'm not totally sure, you might know better, Paul, as regards the status of Darren Shaughnessy's injury, whether it is kind of back in the frame now.
Yeah, I think he expects to be back in, and obviously, I was just going to say there probably will happen where Darren Shaughnessy comes in, and maybe someone like Cayman Killeen, brother of Cullen Killeen, goes into midfield for them this weekend now.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do because it has been a real strength of them in kind of the bits I've seen in terms of that midfield partnership. And then, it's the dilemma when something like that happens. Do you go for like replacement, or do you move someone from another part of the team and risk disrupting that? But then you would sense that like they have a couple of forward options, and just like you mentioned, Darren Shaughnessy kind of being back in the frame, so that's maybe one attacking option. Um, Neil Keary, experienced player, came off the bench the last. They got 3 points, so maybe that is probably the more kind of a natural one that they have to do. But it's going to be very intriguing in terms of what they do at midfield because that is a real source of strength for Ballygunner, and it is a kind of platform on which they establish a lot of control in games. So it would have been great to see Ian Hanrahan and Colin Killeen, that partnership kind of continuing going up against Paddy Levy and Conor Sheehan. But as you say, if Ian Hanrahan came and Killeen, that'll be equally as interesting, probably influential in deciding how this one is going to go.
This game on Sunday, Finton, it has the makings of a really exciting contest when you consider both teams and the style of hurling they play. But it's not always something we get when it comes to finals either.
No, it isn't. And I've been in a lot of All Ireland Club hurling finals where we're in the neutral vantage point, in the press box. And I mean, for the winners, they don't care. Like if they win, if they absolutely blitz the team, so they don't care as long as they win the All Ireland Club title. But there's been a lot of them have been kind of over by half time. 12 months ago, that was the situation with Sarsfields and Athena. Now the trend has kind of changed a little bit. Um, you only have to look at St. Thomas in a Burke wonder point to win it against Loughlin Gales, the Harry Ruddle goal to Ballygunner to beat Ballyhale. Even the one just before COVID was a very, very good game, Bursley and Ballyhale, so, but there have been a lot where, Kula and the Pearshik, for example, they were all in the finals. It was pretty one sided. So the hope is that you'll get to a spectacle which is kind of tight and engaging kind of for the neutral. And then we get treated to a really, really good contest. And again, kind of just harking back to the recent All Ireland Club hurling finals. I mean, the doubleheader last Saturday, for anyone who watched it, albeit I know it's an intermediate and junior level, was absolutely enthralling stuff. You couldn't take your eyes off as watching both on the TV. Like one game goes to extra time, the other is decided by a point. So you'd be hoping that the ingredients are definitely there for that this weekend in the senior final, and you'd hope it kind of just lives up to that kind of billing.
Obviously, Loughrea were last year, a couple of years ago, Ballyhale bet them comfortably in the end. But you look at it, it's a chance for these Loughrea players now to create their own history this weekend.
It is definitely, yeah. And I mean, this sort of stuff probably won't be interfering into their thinking, but imagine for the wider club, you kind of spent a lifetime looking around at other pockets in the area. St. Thomas are obviously the obvious one because they're kind of next door to them, and there's so many of them kind of go to school in Loughrea, and there's just all those kind of everyday kind of connections. But I mean, you've been looking at Port Humna, before that I'm trying to think Clarnbridge, Athenroy, Sarsfields. I'm trying to think if I left anyone out there. Sarsfields before that, obviously, the other would have won All Ireland club titles. So you're kind of looking at that, and this is kind of viewed as your kind of chance to shine. And I suppose the 2006 one, they beat Port Humna to win that county final, and then obviously went on to the All Ireland club. But I don't know, is there a sense of like this team, like if you look at them 2022, they lose the Galway county final by a point after a replay. So, they're building slowly. And then last year, 2 years ago now, we're in 2026, 2024, they get it right and they win the Galway county final, lose the semi final to Nafina, but then they've gone one step further again. So maybe there's a sense that they're kind of on this journey kind of for 3 or 4 years. But huge thing. I mean, it's only the second time the club have been in an All Ireland final. You can't take this sort of stuff for granted. Ballygunner, for all their success and all the kind of prominence they've had, they actually have the same number of All Ireland final appearances as Loughrea. They've both only been in one final before, so it's no less a significant occasion for them. And I mean, you see it as well, like with Dingle and St. Bridget's as well this weekend. Like just this sort of a stage, you don't take it for granted. I'm sure no one in the club is, and they're kind of looking to appreciate it. Well, at the same time, within the playing camp, you're cognizant the rarity of these opportunities. I mean, Loughrea, uh, maybe there's a bit of a freedom when they kind of get out of Galway, but they've kind of seen how difficult it is to get out of Galway. It's been just so hard to kind of break, especially the dominance that St. Thomas have had over the last decade. So, there's no guarantee that it's going to be easy to get out of there and get back again. So I'm sure they'll be kind of willing or kind of really, really intent on kind of making a go of this, and really, really kind of going for it.
Do you think even if you go back as far as last year and obviously Loughrea running Navina so close, do you think maybe that was the turning point of Loughrea maybe starting to believe that they are real All Ireland contenders?
I say definitely, yeah. I say definitely must have been a factor, you know. I mean, and simply, simply first of all, because you've run a team so close in the semi final, you know. And for instance, Finn as well, we're new to that stage. But then I often wonder, like, is it a good or a bad thing for a team then when they see the team that they lost to go on and win the final easily? Like,
Hmm.
do you kind of prove to you, God, we're not that far away, or does it fill you up with even more regret, kind of about that semi final? You know, what I mean, there's no easy way to lose a game by a point, but kind of the way they lost that game, um, like if you take it right, they lost to the final by a point there, and they beat St Thomas by a point in this year's Galway County final. But the narrative of the games is very, very different because they were kind of on top really in that Galway final. They had that cushion, and then the Conor Cooney late goal cuts it to a point. But I think the only time they trailed in the whole game against the Fianna was when AJ Murphy got that point in the 64th minute. So that's a really kind of a hard thing to stomach. But you then seen a Fianna win the final. You come back and you back it up this year by winning the Galway, or sorry, last year 2025 by winning the Galway title. It must make you feel confident and assured that you can compete at that level, but also maybe probably gives you that motivation. And I thought it was interesting. I know it's a different type of game and circumstances, but how dominant they finished the game against Shockney in this semi final, whereas ultimately their scoring just faded that little bit coming down the stretch against the Fina 12 months previously. So that does show the sign of a team that has suffered the lesson of defeat, has learned from it, absorbed it, and kind of put that learning kind of into practice then when it mattered most.
It was an impressive nature, wasn't it, that performance against Slaughtneil then in the semi-final for Loughrea?
Yeah, yeah. You know, Schlockdale haven't got to a final and they probably maybe are winning a little bit, but you can't take away from Loughrea either with how impressive they were. Um, but Schlockmeal have made it very uncomfortable for teams. I mean, pre-COVID there was a one against the Piercing in Parnell Park, and there was a game against Ballyhale and Newry, and then most recently they definitely could have beaten the 2024 semi Sarsfields. There was a chance near the end for a goal that somehow went over the bar in Newbridge. Um, so maybe they're on the slide a little bit, and this is kind of one of their last chances. But Loughrea made them look that way as well, like that kind of ineffective. And I thought it was impressive how the game was a little bit tight, but how they kind of turn on, they just accelerated away from them really. And even if you look at the way that they went for the goals, it kind of showed a side clinical, especially the second one was it Vince Morgan got it. You
Yeah.
would have felt maybe there was an opportunity to tap over a handy point, or from memory there was kind of maybe someone to his right, maybe in a better position, but he kind of had the kind of the opportunism and the kind of decisiveness to kind of go for it, and obviously the skill then to execute the shot, and the same with Anthony Burns' goal in the first half. And it was striking as well how it's very much a collective effort. Just even the spread of scorers, I think it was 10 players in all scored, and 8 of them got 2 points or more. So it doesn't feel like it's a one man show dependent. Not that that's, I wouldn't say it's the case with Ballygunner either, but certain teams, like you would have felt, for example, the semi final, I would have felt St. Martin's. If you hold the O'Connors, it's kind of a lot rested on them scoring wise, and that's the way it proved on the day they were held. There does seem a really, really good balance to Loughrea, which can only be a good thing heading into Sunday.
Do you think that it's a challenge for the Loughrea management to manage this weekend? Obviously, it's the first time this group of players are going to be in Croke Park at the weekend.
It is, yeah, yeah. I mean, I presume you're fine tuning preparations, and it's like the debate. I don't know, where they gone up the night before, or I suppose they are probably in the position that you could travel up in the morning of the game, whereas, say, for example, Dingle in the football final, I imagine they have to go up the night before. It's just too long. It is too long a trip, and they've had that situation within their own province. So you hear that some teams it's kind of taken out of their hands, but maybe they're kind of in the opportunity lock way that they can go up. So just little things like that. Um, Getting your preparation right, like where you're meeting before, all that kind of logistical stuff, so that there is kind of no kind of uncertainty kind of creeps into the players. But at the same time, I mean, it's not completely alien. Like it's they haven't played there together as a club before, but you probably know the exact figure. But I mean, obviously Johnny Cohn is one that kind of stands out in the senior sense. But I mean, since Galway kind of got admitted to Leinster with the senior championship, the Croke Park thing is just more regular for them now. And obviously, there's kind of guys at underage of and all that, you know. So look, I'm not exactly sure the exact number that have been there, but that probably helps a little bit, you know, that there is that kind of familiarity with it. Like, but you kind of got to make sure you're kind of not starstruck either, you know. And I'm thinking of Sarsfields of Cork last year, for example. The game was over by halftime before they know it, you know. Like it can an All Ireland final can be a lonely place, you know. It can get away from you very, very quickly. And like they chipped away in the second half. I think they might have drawn the second half or maybe lost it a little bit less narrowly, but still I think it was 9 points in the end was at the margin of the defeat. Like, but that's an example of a one where all the preparations and everything you've talked about kind of getting a good start, and then suddenly it's gone. And you know, you don't know are you going to get back there. It's not that kind of easy. So I'd say it's a lot in terms of kind of getting their mind frame right, and attacking the game from the start. But I mean, their experience as well. Like I said, the fact that it's well, they are a first time finalist team. I think it is significant the journey they've kind of been on in terms of gradually, you know, since that 2022. I'm looking at maybe a bit simplicity to kind of look at that tight time frame, but kind of moving to try and get to this stage and bit by bit and getting used to big games. And Ballygunner were similar before they finally got to a final in 2022. You know, they've been steadily trying to get there. Um, I think that can probably help them. Maybe there is a little bit of an experience and maybe just calms the thing a little bit as well. You know, your emotions are kind of in check heading into it.
Loughrea's opponents, Ballygunner, obviously Jason Ryan in charge of them now. Do you feel maybe is this Ballygunner team the same Ballygunner team as old? Obviously, they're playing a completely different style now under Jason Ryan.
Yeah, the style I don't think is too dissimilar, but there has been some kind of personnel changes. You experienced guys like Shane O'Sullivan and Barry Coughlin not involved anymore. Um, but just younger players kind of come into it. You know, I mean, Patrick Fitzgerald would have been involved the last time they won the previous time they won the All Ireland club, and say Mark Hartley made a big impact off the bench the last day. But the core of it is still there. You know, the core of it is still familiar in terms of Philip Manny, Pork Manny, and Stephen O'Keefe, and kind of three big names. Obviously, Eddie Hutchinson, I think, is probably in Club Hurler of the Year territory at the moment. You know, with the form he's been in, and guys that kind of were there previously, the roles have probably gotten a bit more important. You know, Paddy Levy, Peter Hogan. Um, there's a lot of kind of guys there to kind of clamp down, and there's still a lot of experience in that team. You know, I mean, as an example, like we're now in 2026, like Stephen O'Keefe, Porrick Manny, and Philip Manny played in the Munster Club Hurling final in 2009, which is an incredible stretch of service to kind of still be going. You know, that's just over 16 years ago, and they're kind of still involved, and it probably reflects the success they've enjoyed as a club, but also that ambition to get that second medal is still very much there.
Obviously, when you look at Ballygunner then and their path here, they've sort of just been keeping teams at an arm's length this year. Maybe in previous years they've come in maybe comfortable victors over various teams, but this year they've just been able to keep teams at arm's length.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Definitely in the games that I was saying, like the Pierce game now, they definitely that was a bit of an arm wrestle in terms of trying to emerge in that thing in Limerick. But I think that was always going to Waves going to be up there with the history they have kind of between them. Uh, goals kind of came at the right times then against Sarsfield, you know, but they were fairly clinical and fairly powerful at the start of that game. They didn't blitz a rogue maybe on the scoreboard in terms of the goals, but still won by 9 points. And you know, sometimes you're at a game, it just feels more comfortable when you're looking at a team, you know. And I didn't think there
Mm.
was any sense that they were going to lose that, to be honest with you, when I was watching it. And then the day of St. Martin's game was really put up to them for the first half. And Martin's actually went up 8-5, up 6-4 at half time, went up 8-5 early in the second half. But I mean, like Ballygunner hit 14 in the next 15 points and just kind of blew them away, like, you know. So it's like, in a way, you know, all the punches that have been kind of landed, they've been able to take them, withstand them, and then they just like move on and just kind of push past teams in when it kind of matters. Um, so I think it's still an impressive kind of body of work they've done. Like you've beaten the Limerick Cork Clare and then the Wexford champions who knocked out Ballyhale Shamrocks, you know, and they've come through the long way again in in Munster in terms of they're drawn in the quarter final and they've coped with the long stretch since their county final. So I think that the Pierce game and the St. Martin's game in particular, overcoming those two tests for different reasons, because the Pierce one was their first day out and they're away from home in Munster. That would kind of give them good confidence. And then the semi final hurdle has been an issue for them just as a club. It was their fifth fifth time in a semi final, and they'd only won one of the ones previous, and certain times I think Ballygunner, so it was a six semi final, and it was only the second one that they won. So some of the times they played Ballyhale, I think they were beaten by a better side, and obviously, as you know, like lost to St Thomas then in penalties in that game, Portish, a few years back. But there was an impressive, especially the final quarter, there was an impressive aspect of that play. You couldn't but be admired in the way they were motoring that day.
I was only thinking to myself today, is the Thomas's game plan, is that the way Loughrea go after Ballygunner this weekend? Obviously, we've seen early on Martins sort of had that similar intensity, but just unfortunately weren't able to sustain it. But is that something Loughrea have to have this weekend?
Definitely around the middle, yeah. And I think you've hit the nail on the head with one of your words there, the word sustain, because I wasn't at that game, St. Thomas game. I remember watching it on TV. It was incredible spectacle. Like it was like God, like the ferocity with which they're everything about them, the energy and the intensity, and how they're actually managing to keep it going. And obviously that game went extra time. Uh, and like for might have been a difficult watch at times the St Martin's game, but I mean the physicality was unbelievable for a lot of stages of that game. But then Ballygunner like just literally upped it kind of around the 38, 39 minute mark. Um and in fairness to St Martin's, like the emotion of winning their first ever Leinster Club title, they'd only had 2 weeks of a break. Yeah, 2 weeks of a break between the Leinster final and the semi final. Ballygunner had 3 weeks. It obviously wasn't. It couldn't have meant as much to them to win that Munster final as it was St Martin's to win their first. You can just temper it slightly the celebrations, and you can kind of get back at it. So just by the end of it, by that they just looked absolutely kind of drained of energy, St Martin. So uh, that's probably a hint of luck for Loughrea as well. There, that like basically it's not going to be a 40 minutes job. Like it has to be kind of a 60 minute in terms of sustaining it. And like I suppose you mentioned the St Thomas example, but Ballyhale probably shown that against them as well. And Sarsfield was a quartet last year. He's just said and done. Because the dominance they've had
Yeah.
in Waterford and Munster, but trying to sustain it and clamp down on the likes of Philip Manny and Paddy Levy and just kind of compress that middle third is kind of central to it.
You mentioned Desi Hutchinson in Club Hurler of the Year form. Kieran Hanrahan's been a man who's probably been in Club Hurler of the Year form for Loughrea this year, throughout Galway, and even the last day driving forward against Loughneel. Is he the man you feel that could match up with Desi this weekend?
He could, but I just wonder are they going to given the joy he's had kind of moving forward and they have that kind of a defender that can do that, will they be tempted not to change from that, deviate from it? So would it then fall to kind of Paul Hoban, Johnny Cohen, just one examples, the kind of experienced players, would they keep them back? Um, Pat Fitzgerald usually stays close to goal. Desi can kind of alternate. Sometimes he can be out, but sometimes he can go in then to huge effect, as we saw in St. Martin's in particular with 7 points. But it is going to be an interesting one. Again, look, they might change it. They might just decide Hutchinson is such a special talent that you got to stop him, And I mean, you even think when they did win that All Ireland Club final, it was his goal in the second half so crucial and kind of kick started it, So yeah, no, it'll be an interesting matchup, Like once before the ball is thrown, we'll be interested to see what way they're lining up and in terms of what way they've decided to kind of alternate it in that full forward line. Will they keep the three of them close in, him Fitzgerald and Kevin Manny, or will he be allowed the kind of freedom to roam out a bit and will Loughrea just send someone after him then, to kind of shadow him and police him all day?
Yeah, it'll be interesting there because they switched Joe Mooney and Kieran Hanrahan. They moved Hanrahan out to the half back line, put Joe Mooney into the full back line. So it's interesting there. And you would imagine Shane Morgan probably ties up then with Porrick Manny, the fact he obviously marked Brendan Rodgers in the semi final.
Yeah, I suppose the dilemma then is that sometimes Manny can just drop off. So do you then have to pass him on to a midfielder, whether that's Ian O'Hanrahan or, as you said, if you think Cayman Killeen is going to be there because he can kind of float very, very deep. Um, and like if Manny, a lot of his points and deliveries into the forward line can sometimes be around the midfield area or the half back line. Even though he's kind of playing with set of forward on his back. So you could have Morgan watch him, but is Morgan then going to want to deviate too far from that kind of centre back role as in it's hold and it's maybe just a thing where you're passing the job on? Like for example, Philip Manny's going to be centre back for Ballygunner. But if Tiernan Killeen starts to come a little bit deeper, he's not going to follow him. That role will just be passed on to a Paddy Levy or Conor Sheehan or whoever. His job is to sit in that pocket. It's to cut off the deliveries and all that. And I see Morgan kind of do bits and pieces of that as well. Like, so it is going to be pretty interesting. Uh, both centre backs not getting pulled and dragged around the place, and then conversely, what the two centre forwards try and do. Because I think it was in the Feeney game, wasn't it? Killeen in particular, particularly in the first half. I think the first 20, 25 minutes, he was really, really prominent in that. I know that's 15 months ago now, but just as an example of a game where he can have a real, real impact on it.
Yeah, it's particularly interesting with Kean there and Mahoney, as you mentioned, both very similar at dropping deep, but when they've dropped deep, they've been so crucial to both of their teams as well.
Yeah, 100%. And like really quality players. I mean, Port Manny's the established one in terms of, I suppose, he had the intercounty senior career, and his Galway will now play against them in the 2017 All Ireland senior final. But Killeen is a guy that I think is, he's going to have that. Well, he's a potential anyway, and the kind of raw materials are there, like to be that kind of prominent kind of a player as well. Um, and it's kind of, I suppose, trying to get the both kind of into the frame. And like Manny is still so important to Ballygunner. I mean, like they didn't have him in that game against the Piercig, and they struggled a bit. Like Desi Hutchinson was put on the freeze, and they weren't going as well for him, and they did kind of miss his influence kind of around the middle. Um, and he just has that kind of a settling impact on them. And I imagine Loughrea have kind of studied it closely since then, in terms of trying to disrupt him and kind of not allow him that kind of latitude to kind of dominate.
As we're talking, it's interesting when it comes to Loughrea. If Cayman Kileen's the player that drops into the middle, is does Darren Shaughnessy automatically go wing forward then? And maybe he has to because if you look at the inside line of Martin McManus, Anthony Burns, Vince Morgan, they're all players you want to have close to goal.
Yeah, I suppose Shaughnessy he was full there, wasn't he, against St. Thomas, and
Yeah,
he had that
got
impact.
the great
And
goal. Yeah.
yeah, and again, I'm talking about Vince Morgan's goal against Shockneil, where the easiest thing is to go for a point. But at that stage of the game, once he rounded, I think it was Kean Manny, um, unbelievable kind of just single-mindedness, and kind of ambition to kind of go straight for the goal, ball-headed, like, and then obviously the finish as well. Um, yeah, so you have to keep someone close to goal. Like Burns in particular has been so effective, hasn't he? Like in both those
Yeah.
games, and he was the same last year. Um, you got to think like he's a real kind of a danger man that Ballygunner are going to be kind of needing to watch him kind of tie down. Um, but I guess it's a good complaint, while it is a big setback to lose someone like Colin Killeen. At least they're not lacking options, because even the fact that Shaughnessy's played, obviously being key, and he played in the Galway final, but even Vince Morgan has had that All Ireland semi final under him, and I'm obviously not just, he's obviously experienced, but I'm just saying in terms of kind of recent form, so that they know kind of what he's capable of and that he can kind of produce it, like, So I suppose you're taking the setback on one hand and you're hoping that it won't disrupt the team too much, but at least you kind of have a few options and like a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C as well. I presume, imagine positionally to try and move things around if the first one isn't working out.
What needs to happen for Loughrea to be All Ireland champions on Sunday?
I would say you're kind of looking at the clamping down of that kind of Philip Manny, Paddy Levy aspect for one. You know, Daisy probably needs to be nullified to a certain extent, and I think you need a couple of goals. As a template to beat them. I'm just thinking of a most recent one. Sarsfield's like when they beat them in the Munster final, 2024, that they got an early goal that day through Jack O'Connor, and that really, really kind of set them up. And then Shane O'Regan came off the bench and got a couple of goals. Even if you look at the two times, they're different teams, but the two times Ballyhale beat them, Ballygunner didn't get a goal, and Ballyhale got the only goal of the game. And then even the last day, as good and all as I felt St. Martin's were doing, I felt to really cap it off. They're going to need a goal here. Now they were unlucky. I thought they definitely should have had a penalty. And then, look, to be fair to the ref, I at first glance thought the ball had been thrown into the net as well. But then you see in the replays that it was kicked in. Then there was another potential opportunity. I don't remember, just after half time. Rory O'Connor was cutting through, and Paddy Levy took one for the team, hauling him down, and got the yellow card. But they were the kind of two clear sightings of goals. So Ballygunner are aware of it as well, And then obviously the further you go in, you have one of the best shot stoppers in the game. I mean, I was covering in 2024 Ballygunner against Doon in the first round of the Munster Championship, and Doon were just about a week after winning their first Limerick, I think. title, but they were still playing really, really well. But they had a chance. I think it was Jack Ryan, could have the name wrong now. So early in the second half was going through, and it was a brilliant chance for a goal. And O'Keefe pulled off a save. Like you were just like staggered as to how he managed to do it. So it's easier said than done. Um, but in fairness, Loughrea, I mean, they showed, they got that key goal in the county final, and obviously the way they got those goals against Shockmail. So there is obviously goal scoring threats there, but uh, definitely one and probably two. I think they'll need a couple of goals, I think, to win this.
How do you see it going, Fintan?
Look, I think of this remove, I think you have to I think you have to kind of nudge towards Ballygunner as the favourite side. Like I said, I give Loughrea. I think they have a huge amount going for them. A lot of really strong attributes. I don't, and you'd hope for the sake of the game, I don't think even though the first time finalists are going to be kind of overawed by this. Um, like even though Ballygunner have a title, I think there's a sense of a mission about them because I mean it's just like absolutely obliterating everyone in Waterford for the last over a decade. They've now started to do that in Munster. They need to convert that into a second All Ireland title. The way the likes of Ballyhay have done, and obviously the serial Galway winners have done. Maybe a bit of a sense you could draw a parallel with St Thomas. I know it was a different team by the time they did it, but there was a sense for that group, wasn't there, that they needed to get another title out of them and All Ireland to kind of round off all the good work that they've done and kind of regularly kind of winning in Galway. Maybe get that kind of sense from Ballygunner. And look at what I really like with Loughrea, as I said, is how balanced they are and the experience, the likes of Cohen and Hoban, and then a lot of really good array of attacking options, and then the Kean kind of bit of youth there and all that. But I think Ballygunner are our favourite for a reason, so I would be edging towards them to win this.
Great stuff, Fintan. Thanks very much for your time this evening.
No worries, Paul.
Now, in part two of the show, I'm delighted to be joined by David Connors. David, you're obviously living in Loughrea at the minute. What's the excitement levels like in the town this week?
That's great, Paul. It's super. Colour is the flags up since the county final, so there's still as many that have survived the awful wind and rain we've had over the last few weeks. It's great. There's a great buzz around the town. Like you can't pop down to any shop and straight away you bump into someone. You more like the first topic of conversation is hurling. So there's plenty of shops down there that are selling plenty of hats, flags, headbands, and things like that ahead of the match. And there's just a fantastic buzz. It's great to be it's great to be around the town at the minute because it's so rare that you have the opportunity to be living in a parish that's or a place that's competing in an Ireland club final. So yeah, I'd say they're really looking forward to now. I'd say they count down their I'd say a few of the players and management and things like that are keeping a low profile this week, trying to probably stay away from the hype and things like that. But for everyone else in Loughrea, it's fever pitch.
I was only thinking during the week for a lot of these Loughrea players, they've obviously looked on at what Thomases have done in two All Ireland finals.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I'm sure it gives them plenty of motivation as well. And no more so than maybe what Thomas did against Ballygunner a couple of years ago as well. It's just going to highlight the Galway teams are well able to the task at hand. Absolutely, it's a huge opportunity, Paul. I'm sure that these finals, as we say, they don't come around that often. It's what 19 years since Loughrea were last in an All Ireland final. So if that tells you the taste, this could be the only opportunity for every single one of these players, if that's how it comes to pass, if that's the length they have to wait again. It's not the length I think they'll have to wait again from my point of view. They're just too good a team, but and they've too much talent coming through their ranks. But it's kind of one of these chances that it's kind of one of these things that when you reach an All Ireland final, you really have to make the most of it. And I know the pageantry and everything involved with it. It's great to be involved in that, but the task at hand is winning the game and winning the All Ireland final, and then you want those fond memories to look back on rather than a runners up medal or coming away with regrets from the final like probably the crop of 2007 have.
You mentioned there the previous final they were in against Ballyhale, and obviously a lot of the Loughrea management team were involved in that team back then. Do you feel that'll help them on a week like this?
I'm sure it will, Paul. It's like I'm sure it will, but I think even more so than that, I think the majority of this Loughrea squad have played in Croke Park already. I think like sure you look at St. Rayfields, the contingent, your likes of your Johnny Cohen's, probably Paul Hubels. I think a guy was chatting to them at the media day in advance of the final, and I think Ian Hanner was saying it's 5 players that haven't played in Croke Park that are in from the I think probably from the starting team, and I think, and he included himself in that as well. So it's a huge honour for the likes of Ian going out there on All Ireland final day, leading his club out for your very first time. It must be a tremendous buzz, but I'm sure it will. Like it's not even that just the fact that the management team were involved in 2007. They're just hugely experienced as well, Paul. Like as in, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of messaging around. Like I'm sure if somebody hasn't stole the old Joe Kernan trick of like just in your runners up middle from 2007 and firing it against the wall and saying whatever you do, don't come back with this, don't come back like us. Ahead of the final, I'm sure that'll probably be one they can use. But it's more so like I suppose keeping them steady, and they probably can draw on that experience as well. And I know Tommy Kelly, when I was chatting to him ahead of the final, he referenced, maybe like not to get too caught up in the hype, maybe that from the 2007 crowd, maybe their eye was taken a little bit off the ball, and maybe the focus is purely on getting the result and trying to win this game and overcoming Ballygunner.
If you look at their form to date, Loughrea, even if you take it back to the county quarter final where they dug deep against Clanbridge, really impressive then against Turlock, brought it to another level then against Thomas's, but the semi-final against Loughneel is the probably most impressive performance to date, but in fairness to them, they have been able to improve it every day from that quarter final all the way now to this All-Ireland final.
Yeah, I'd say probably if I was arguing, I'd say probably their second half turnaround against Clareton Bridge was probably the best performance of the year. As a small passage, we'll say probably the Slaughtneil game as a whole was probably you're right when you say probably their 60 plus minutes of action throughout the whole year. Again, I suppose there's probably been a couple of teams that they probably want to tidy up in ahead of the final, and I suppose most for the foremost of their minds will probably be their efficiency. Like he's in, they left Thomas's in it. I know they didn't leave Slaughtneil in it, but they still missed quite a good few chances. And I suppose heading in facing a team of Ballygunner's calibre, they'll really need to be taking their chances first, points and, less wides and drop shorts and efforts. But if they do get a sniff of goal chance, it'll be crucial that they take it. And I do think they have the players to take it. And, I think the surface in Croke Park will suit them. I think they have a lot of direct runners. I think they use the ball quite well. They're well able to exploit space in a similar manner Ballygunner are as well. But I suppose tidy up on that efficiency, I think ahead of the final, that'd be the number one thing I think that Tommy and his management should be trying to do, because they could have been out of sight really at half time against Slaughtneil, and they really should have had Thomas's put away long before the final whistle with the chances that they had. So that's probably the number one target for the management ahead of the game.
How big of a loss is Cullen Killeen?
Ah, sure. Massive, massive. You'd hope. I don't know where they are in the appeals process. Like, are they going to carry it any further forward? I don't. It's kind of one of these things that I don't really like asking, given the player is so young and and everything like that. But like, sure, like man of the match in All Ireland semi final, like he's probably been one of their most consistent performers all year. His experience of playing at Croke Park, he's a hugely talented player. He's kind of in a position that maybe they have options in a lot of places, but maybe it's probably they're a little bit thinner maybe in midfield, and then like you have his partnership with Ian Hanrahan. They know each other really well at this point as well. Sure, it's huge. It's huge. I feel sorry for him if he does miss the final, like on a personal level. Like it's an awful thing to to miss out on this occasion. Like I suppose one thing like from a Loughrea point of view, like it's a bit of motivation there as well. Like, do it for Cullen, do it for, perceived injustice. And like, I don't think just given on the level of talent that Cullen has, think he'll have opportunities to play in Croke Park. If not for Loughrea, definitely with Galway, I think he's well good enough. But you'd hope maybe there might be a chink of light there coming down the tracks. But it's hard to see it, but you won't hold out hope until maybe the teams are named and maybe All Ireland final day they take to the field.
The annoying thing about it, isn't it? People probably go to the point that there's no video footage there to prove that it wasn't a red, but it's not like there's been video footage there either to prove it was a red.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, it was the one occasion that you'd hope that there would have been more cameras. It's unusual enough. I think the fact that actually I heard someone from Teach Gar reference that because the Ballygunner St Martin's game was on a reasonable similar. It was on the same day, so the resources were cut. I think they had only three cameras in Parnell Park, whereas they'd normally have five, and so that kind of has come back to kind of haunt Loughrea. Like I'll be honest with you, you were in attendance, Paul, so I actually haven't seen it, so I have no idea what happened, like genuinely. And like, even if he did do it and the cameras picked it up, at least you could say, look, it's terrible it happened, but like, like you can't really argue with it. Whereas now there's the kind of that grey area, whereas we can't, like, I can't say whether the incident justified a red card. I can't say it did or it didn't. Like, did you see anything on the day, or did you miss
Yeah,
it, or were you following the play, or
I was actually over in the terrace, so it was
okay?
hard to see it, unfortunately, and with the scoreline too. Um, you're sort of nearly getting ready to head off after that. So yeah, no, it was just didn't see that, unfortunately. But if Cullen does miss it, I've been thinking about this. Is it maybe his brother Cayman goes to midfield? Does Darren Shaughnessy come in then to wing forward?
I think if Darren Shaughnessy was fit, I think you'd have to start him anyway, even if Cullen was there. So, however they rejig it around after that, just given his form in Galway, and he's one of their leading lights, and sure, like, man of the match in the county final, so no less. So, like, it would be hard to leave Darren off if he was fit, if he was fully fit. Cayman is definitely an option. Someone maybe like Jamie Ryan as well could potentially be an option there. I know he's played in midfield in the past, and if you give Jamie a bit of space around the middle there, he can really hurt you. And his pace as well could be an option. Like, they do have quite they have a few. As you said, Cayman could potentially be it. But then, like, is it a case like do you tell Cayman to empty himself for 20 minutes or for 50 minutes, say, or 45 minutes, and then say maybe bring someone else on, because Croke Park, like, it's unforgiving. You'll feel the burn in your lungs after probably your first run, and you'll feel it as well after at half time and maybe approaching the final quarter. So it'll be very interesting to see how they do it. Or is it someone like maybe a young face like Gavin Maher, like,
Yeah.
that could maybe come on and provide a bit of legs around the middle of the field there as well, and maybe it's a bolter that they have in that regard. I don't know. I really don't know. Like, and it's only really kind of when they take the field. I'm sure, like, the management will be holding out hope that Cullen can be involved right up until throw in, but I suppose they'll probably happen to be making contingency plans as well and working out systems of play and who's going to step in. But there is options there. Maybe Tiernan. Maybe they say, look at Tiernan. Like, we need you back to kind of fill in from Cullen as well. And I know he's played a bit there in the past as well for Loughrea. So yeah, I don't know, Paul. I don't know. It's there's. I really don't know. You'd have to be a fly on the wall in the Loughrea management team meetings this week, and kind of to figure out what exactly they're going to do.
Yeah, my only thinking was is maybe you have to end up putting Darren Shaughnessy wing forward, because if you look at the full forward line against Stockneil, Vince Morgan, Anthony Burns, Burton McManus, they're all really three players you want close to goal.
Yeah, yeah. I'd say I probably want Darren. I'd include Darren in that as well.
Yeah.
Closer to goal. I'd be like, how you'd rejig it. Really, it's probably a case that maybe two go in for while another one sits in the top of the triangle, and maybe they rotate it. Do you know what I mean? Martin McManus can go in for a while. He can also play, be a bit of a ball winner there under puck outs in the half forward line. You could switch it up then and maybe bring out Vince for a while, or bring out Anthony Burns as well. I know he's had spells of wing forward for Loughrea in the past, so I think it's probably going to be the case that, like, given the amount of options you have, you kind of get someone to kind of do a bit of the legwork, and kind of and rotate it between those four if that's how it works out. Cameron, we know what he's going to give you going back as well the field, and same with Tiernan. So yeah, it's interesting. It's just one of these things. It's probably like they prefer to have Cullen available, obviously, like and and might kind of maybe have that impact off the bench there, along with your like someone like Neil Carey will say as well at the same time. But yeah, I don't know, Paul. I'm only kind of speculating. It's very hard to do anything without actually the Loughrea management's input.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be interesting then defensively because Joe Mooney and Kieran Hanrahan obviously switched roles in the semi-final. Joe Mooney going back into the full back line. Would you expect Kieran Hanrahan to go back into the full back line then to pick Desi up?
If Desi's centre forward, I think Kieran Hanrahan would be centre
Yeah,
back. I
yeah.
think it'll be just one of these things of how they do it. But I will say, just like, Desi is probably the best forward in club hurling. Like, I think it's another step up as on who Kieran has marked so far. Like, you look at his scoring returns of the last few games, like it's like 1-6, 7 points, six from play. Like, he is in red hot form. And I do think that even if you do match up 1v1 inside with Kieran, if Kieran is, and I think 95% of the time, there's a 95% chance that Kieran will be assigned the role of Dizzy, that you need to offer a bit of layer of protection for him as well, because like there isn't a defender in the country like who can mark Desi one on one if you allow space in front of him. So I think it's a case that maybe it's Shane Morgan that sits back a little bit deeper. Maybe it's two wing backs that sit in front of him, because like Desi in Crow Park on a one-on-one job would be probably the most thankless task in Ireland at the minute. And Kieran is probably the outstanding defender in Galway over the past 2 years, but even he will need support, and he'll need a dig out here and there, because Desi's movement is just incredible, and same for Pádraig Fitzgerald as well. At the same time, like you saw like what he did against Thomas's 2 years ago. Like I think himself and Desi finished with 1-4 each against them. But at the same time that day, Shane Cooney was providing an extra layer of protection for them, and even still, they have that ability to kind of tear you apart. So I think we all assume that Kieran, given his man marking roles up to this point, will give it Desi. But I would probably preface it by saying that he needs a bit of help as well. He can't be left just isolated one on one there, or two defenders can't be left isolated one on one there. And maybe it's Johnny covering across if they only have two inside, or something like that, or Paul Hooban or Joe Mooney. Maybe Joe Mooney's legs might be needed there as well at the same time. It's a thankless task, but if like they can kind of hold Desi to. They can hold Desi to 4 points and play, like he's going to score. Like if Kieran Hanrahan stops him from scoring, it'll probably be one of the best performances in Crow Park, and he probably should be automatically handed man of the match. But I think you need to accept that the likes of Desi, Pádraig Fitzgerald, they're going to score. So it's next ball, even if they do. And I think the experienced heads in the Loughrea sideline and on the pitch will be giving that message across to Kieran at the same time.
It's interesting when you look at the Ballygunner forward line there with Patrick Fitzgerald, Desi Hutchinson, Mikey Mahoney, Kevin Mahoney. Obviously, a lot of talent in that forward line. But the one thing collectively about this Loughrea back six, when you look at Kieran Hanrahan, Johnny Cohen, Paul Hubban, Brian Carey, Shane Morgan, and Joe Mooney, Loughrea have been terrifically set up this year, and they've been hard to break down from a defensive perspective.
Absolutely. And like you look at it, that's probably one of their strengths, isn't it, Loughrea? Like, as in they have a lot of really, really good defenders, really teak tough, defenders that are well capable of doing a man marking job. Like there's few full back lines in the country that can compete with, say, like Johnny Cohen, Paul Hooban, and Kieran Hanrahan in terms of quality. So in that regard, you'd be awful. But then, like the names you listed there, and then, like, I don't know, did you mention Peter Hogan as well? I'm sure you like Peter Hogan played for Waterford. Like, you have Patrick Fitzgerald, Desi Hutchinson, Kevin Mahoney, Pádraig Mahoney, Mikey Mahoney. Then you have like Mark Hartley on the bench coming on. Like, he's like special talent. Like I think he's looking there. He didn't play for Ballygunner seniors this year until the Munster Championship, and he had a huge impact on that regard. And I think he won the quadruple this year. Some unique achievement down at Waterford. He won like minor, under 20, Premier, Intermediate, and Senior. Now I know he might have had minutes in Senior, but he was still involved on the panel, and he's a talent there that they rate hugely in Waterford. It's going to be it's going to be a mammoth task for Loughrea trying to shut down that attack. But like I think Thompsons have a blueprint and like honesty of
Yeah.
effort, like absolutely dying for each other for every ball and getting back to support one another as well. If you find someone in a one-on-one situation, I think that's key. And I do think Loughrea have the experience there, like they're like some got Johnny to kind of marshal the defence and like to tell, say, like Shane to drop a few yards or Brian Carey or Joe Mooney if it's the case that he's the wing back and it's not Kieran Hanrahan. That it's a huge task, Paul, though. Like no point in saying otherwise, but they are lucky that they have so many quality defenders in the ranks at the same time.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. But if you even think back to Thomas's that time in Portlaoise against Ballygunner, and it was two or three Thomas's lads sometimes suffocating Ballygunner around the middle third. It's about sustaining that for 60 minutes, and that's obviously easier said than done. And I've seen Ballygunner live once already this year against the Piercy, and the one thing about them, there's no panic in this Ballygunner team. Even that day against the Piercy, when it looked like they were in trouble, they were able to rally off 3 points late on and win by 3 points. So they have been through arm wrestles as well this year.
They have for sure, and like go through the record, like it is phenomenal. Of course, they have the experience of not panicking. Like we said, Thomas has never panicked when they were on the six in the row drive. This is what like Ballygunner have 12 Waterford titles. They've won like those Waterford finals they've won. They won by like a combined, I think it's 160 points. They haven't been beaten in Waterford they're unbeaten in Waterford in 66 matches. Like I think they've won 23 of the last 27 games in Munster. It's like their winning margin in like this year, like it's like in Waterford, it was something ridiculous. It was like 144 points, and then they bet like the Piercy by three, Saracens by seven, like Aero Venice by nine, and then they bet St. Martin's by nine as well. It's frightening experience that they have, and they've a frightening amount of talent as well, Paul. Like they're cleaning up underage. Like coming through, like they won the minor, they won the under 20. I think they won the All Ireland Fail as well this year at the same time. Like and like they have a huge population base. I think it's somebody's reference. Like they have something like population in their areas. Like they can draw upon like from 25,000 people. So like that's super club status in like the likes of Kilmacud Crokes. Um, Ballyboden St. Intes and all these huge clubs in Dublin that they're comparable with. So they have the numbers, but like they've got the systems in place to bring these players through. And they have the experience of this squad. Like it's like sure, Jesus, like some of them have 12 county titles. Like what is it, like five Munsters or something like that, like as well. Like it's like incredible. And they have a system that they and you would have seen it up close and in the flesh as well. Like this year when you were covering in the Munster Championship, and they would have seen it as well in the past when they were playing the likes of Thomas. Like it's frightening when they get a run in you, like just their movement and skill level and execution, and they all have a plan and they're patient in the build up, which is unusual for a lot of hurling teams. Like they're more than comfortable if like turning around Philip Mahoney, turning around and going back to Stephen O'Keefe and building again to try and create separation somewhere else. So yeah, it's one of these things. They know the system. They're hugely experienced. They're serial winners, but I suppose and they're coming with a mission as well. Like as in they have only one All Ireland title to their name still,
Yeah.
and that'll hurt them. That obviously hurts them. So if they can get their hands in a second one, like it obviously cements their place in history. Like the good teams win one, but great teams win two, and that's kind of where that's kind of probably their aim. And like if they could win two, they could potentially win three, four, five. You just don't know. It's just about kind of getting over that second hurdle.
Loughrea's delivery then into their inside line, even you've seen it the last day with Vince's goal and Anthony Burns as well. The delivery has been impressive into that full forward line, particularly from deep to quality, a ball to delivering inside. And if Loughrea can continue to do that this weekend, they'll be in with a great chance.
Yeah, they could definitely cause them problems. The two teams are very similar, Paul, aren't they? Really,
Yeah.
like the delivery from deep in both squads, both teams is absolutely excellent. And they have like Loughrea have a lot of threats. Like Loughrea have a lot of, or Ballygunner have a lot of headaches this week in terms of how they get their matchups right. Like, as in, like you've devastating forwards in there, like Anthony Burns, Darren Shaughnessy, Martin McManus, Vince Morgan, Jamie Ryan, like Tiernan Killeen, they can all win games by themselves on any given day. And like you just need them to kind of click as a collective, hopefully the next day. And like I suppose like do Ballygunner have the same level of man markers to shut down all them? It'll be interesting to see. Like Ballygunner's attack is frightening, but I think Loughrea can get a bit of joy up front against like I know they have like say Aaron O'Neill, who's like probably certain to probably be playing for Waterford this year in some capacity. Ian Kinney, Philip Mahoney. But there is a couple of places there where Loughrea can get plenty of joy, and they have a lot of quality up front, Loughrea, and they're well capable of manufacturing goal chances as well. And you mentioned their movement there, and that's why like the Loughrea forward movement is exceptional. And when you combine that with like exceptional delivery from deep as well at the same time, you could really you could cause any team problems. And I'm sure Ballygunner will have looked at how Loughrea played over the last few games, and like that Loughrea attack, they should thrive in Croke Park. They should
Yeah.
absolutely thrive. Good surface, the ball will hopefully bounce up into their hand. They'll be away, and then the Ballygunner defenders have the task of trying to shut them down. They can be quite defensive, I will say. Ballygunner, they probably
Yeah.
like Philip Mahoney will sit in the pocket there and try to close off that space. So pinpoint delivery from deep, from your Ian Hannahans, from your Shane Morgans, from your Brian Careys. It'll need to be on the money, but like I think they have the player quality there that they can do it.
And particularly if Tiernan pulls deep here, like Ballygunner will have a massive decision to make.
Yeah, like it's probably the case that if Tiernan does pull deep, like Paddy Levy will probably have to
Yeah.
follow him. Like so, it's very much the case. Like if Paddy Levy is kind of the sort of hurler that doesn't matter if he hits zero balls all game, like as long as he's kind of shutting you down and covering that space there at six, he'll be happy enough to do that. So they do like that's one thing that they probably do have. Like I'd say Tiernan now can be pretty much almost guaranteed that Paddy Levy will probably be within his vicinity for most of the game. So it's kind of trying to wiggle his way around, wiggle that bit of room away. But like if Tiernan can kind of drift out to the sideline, say, and like we saw how he punished Clare Bridge, kind of coming deep and things like that. If he can kind of get even half that joy against Ballygunner, like it'll be a huge stepping stone for Loughrea going forward.
Does this suit Loughrea coming in as underdogs?
Oh, massively, like massively. It should. Like if you're looking at the bookies odds and the media coverage of this all week, it's going to be all Ballygunner. Everybody's going to be talking Ballygunner. They're going to get their hands on second All Ireland. This is their crowning moment. In a lot of places, like if you look at the bookies odds, you'd almost think it's only a correlation going up. And I do think it's like if I were Loughrea, I'd be kind of drawing a lot on that. And like I'm not saying, you need to be primarily motivated by that. Like playing an All Ireland final should be plenty motivation as it is, but it's still there in the back of your mind. Like nobody outside of Galway is really giving us a chance. So like let's go out and show them. And like I think it's a bit of an element of disrespect to Loughrea for what they've achieved. Like I'd argue like their run through Galway has been as hard as been just as hard as what Ballygunner have had to come through Munster. Like if you put like Clare Bridge, Thurlock Thomas's in that Munster Championship, they'd give every one of those Munster teams a right good game. So like they've been well tested. They've overcome Slaughtneil, who like Ballygunner are well aware that they're a troublesome opponent in themselves, and they did it with the minimal fuss in a field that wouldn't have suited Loughrea given how they wanted to play against Slaughtneil either. So like why wouldn't you? Like as in like absolutely you should be like you wouldn't be saying like nobody's giving us a chance or anything like that going out in an event. But I'm sure the players are feeling that as well this week, and we're going to show up what we can do, and that we're an excellent team, and we're more than capable of giving Ballygunner a right test here, and hopefully coming away with the Tommy Moore Cup.
If Loughrea are to get over the line at the weekend, this has to be massive for Galway hurling because if you consider, unfortunately, over the last few years, Croke Park has been a graveyard when it's come to Galway hurling. Obviously, Thomas is the last team to win the Club All Ireland there, but unfortunately, over the last few years, Galway hurling probably hasn't had as many good days in Croke Park as it would like. So if Loughrea were to lift All Ireland, this can give the county a huge lift.
Absolutely, and I think the entire county is behind Loughrea in this, which is not something you could say for Ballygunner and Waterford. I think there's a bit of disdain to Ballygunner and Waterford, given their advantage population wise. We'll say their stranglehold they have on the Waterford Championship. I think their attendance in the county final this year in September was 3,000. I think it was down 1,000 the year before. There's an entire, you know, people are like, I couldn't care less. We're sick of Ballygunner. We don't want to hear them. Whereas in Galway, like, there's a freshness that Loughrea brought to it, and that's to take nothing away from Thomas's the past or anything like that. But it's nice to see a new team coming through, competing at this level, and be more than good enough to go on and win an All Ireland. And you're right, it would be a huge boost for Galway hurling, but it'd be a huge boost for Loughrea, the town, the area. Like, Loughrea have given a lot to Galway hurling down through the years, and they've given, like, they've had some bad days, but they've had some really good days, and no more so than over the last 2 years. And I think for this player pool, like, it'd be great to see them go up the Hogan stand and see Ian Hanrahan get his hand on the cup. Like, I think it'd be phenomenal, and I think it'd be great. It would just be fantastic to see another Galway team get their hands on it, get their hands on an All Ireland title. I think, like, I think I was kind of going back to the record books as themselves and Cork that are the only teams that are playing All Ireland finals that haven't won one. So hopefully they can right the wrongs of that, just themselves more than anyone else, and hopefully they'll be come back to a hero's welcome.
Can they get over the line on Sunday, David?
I just have this nagging feeling that Loughrea are going to do it. I don't know why. I just think, now, I think it'll be very tight, and I think they'll have to make it an absolute war like Thomas's did, and hang in there, don't get blown away, get to half time, be in touch and distance, take it to the final quarter, and go for it from there, and really go for it from there. I think they have the tools. I think Loughrea's attack has the potential to cause Ballygunner's defence quite a few problems. And I think if they can take their goal chances when they come up, I do think that they'll get one or two goal chances, and it's important that they take them. And we'll hope for the day of days from someone like Kieran Hanrahan and Desi, and that they can shut like Saporic Fitzgerald down as well at the same time. And Loughrea by the minimum, I think. I'm going to go with that. It's just this nagging thing is in my head all week that they're like, I think Loughrea have been criminally underrated by outsiders, and I think they're well good enough to do it. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I'd be similar to you. I think there has been maybe an element of disrespect towards Loughrea, and I'd be similar to you. I just think they can squeeze past Ballygunner this weekend. Just on the weekend gone by, David, obviously Galway opened up their 2026 season with a 222 to 16 point win over Offaly in Duggan Park on Sunday. Obviously, difficult conditions. We've seen a lot of youth at the weekend, and you'd have to be encouraged enough. I know it's early on, it's only the Welsh Cup, but to see all these youngsters get a chance and impress on Sunday, it has to be encouraging.
Oh, absolutely. And like I know you were watching it on stream, but I happened to be there, and I kind of went across the pitch afterwards, and the pitch was literally, it was so heavy. It was really, really, really heavy. And that's like fair play to the ground staff there, Christy Brown and all the team in Ballinasloe. They did a fantastic job in getting the pitch fit, but there wasn't a pitch outside maybe Croke Park in the country that could have held up to that rain and the wet. So, like, to see Galway how well they played and to put up a score 222 was fantastic. So a lot of changes throughout the game as well. But Galway, and how they finished like 1-6 without reply to win it, and set up a really good test with them now against Dublin coming down the tracks. I was impressed. Like, you touched on the newcomers there. I thought Killian Trayers was absolutely exceptional at full back in the half he played. I thought he was on Brian Dagnan for the most part. Brian Dagnan would be fairly experienced at this point. He'd be a physical competitor, but physically, like, I didn't think Killian looked in the slightest bit out of place. And I think it was a really confidence boost and start for him. Then someone like maybe Kean Daniels, a wing back, and I know he went back, kind of was slotted back into centre back after Gavin Lee went off at half time. I thought he had a fine game as well. I think his willingness to get forward was quite good. His power there in the half back line was excellent as well. And I suppose, like, just even his control in those conditions, I thought it was really, really good. It was great to see him kick on from how he played all year with Tommy Larkin, should I say, to stepping up with Galway. Jason Ravish, sure, I thought again, like he must have been fouled for handful of frees, score 2 points, set up a goal. Like I think Jason Rabbit is a hugely bright future for Galway, and I think he's going to be one of the mainstays in this Galway team for the next 10 years. I think if I was picking anyone probably the standout performer, I think he would have been mine. And then sure, like Aaron Nyland up front, I think he was excellent as well. Like it was gas, like you'd go through the team, and Declan McLaughlin was probably in his early 20s, was the most experienced forward on the field, which was encouraging. But Aaron is such class on him, like just like incredible skills, and finished with 1-2. Really good debut for him. I think it was 10 players that made their debut for Galway at the weekend, and hugely encouraging. But it was a strong enough Offaly team that we were facing. But I thought it might be a bit more trickier than it actually was. So it was good to see the Galway players step up, and hopefully now we'll see plenty of these guys next weekend against Dublin again. Should be a right good test. I know Dublin went pretty strong against Westmeath as well, so going to the kind of the Lions in at Parnell Park. I know Mihal referenced afterwards that it's kind of a balancing act with Fitzgibbon and Schools, and they have 44 players in the squad at the moment. But I think we kind of could see a lot of these guys again, and maybe with a freshness to it, and see how we go. And then kind of it'll be really interesting then to see kind of what the team is like against Tipperary in the league final. I think that, or the league final, as I just I'm getting ahead of myself, the league opener. That'll kind of give us a real good idea of kind of how the team is shaping up for the year ahead.
Just there, you mentioned Jason Rabbit. He seems like I know it's early in the year, but maybe he potentially is that target man in the half forward line that maybe we've struggled to find over the last few years. Another player too in the half forward line, Darren Neary, top brought a bit of pace to the half forward line as well.
You're absolutely right. And I forgot, like, Darren would slip my mind there. He did an excellent cameo. I think it was the first half he played. He was excellent. Sniped 2 points, and he's a bit of pace about him and directness as well when he gets the ball. So he had a fine game, and certainly he'll be hopeful of minutes. Hopefully, if not in the World Cup final, hopefully in the league going forward. Yeah, I do agree. I think Jason is still a bit of developing physically to do, and when like he does fit into that frame of his, he's gradually getting there. He's going to be a huge man, and he's certainly one. That's like, and he's well, like, kind of, it's underrated Jason's level of hurling as well. At the same time, like, he's a really good paw on him, but he's an intelligent player, and he's quite willing to throw a hand pass if there's a man in a better position. And he's well able to take a score if needs be as well. He's got like his shooting ability is quite good, as we saw like during this year with Athenry. So I think he's certainly one that hopefully now we'll see a good few minutes this year, especially in the league, and kind of build from there. And hopefully then he can kind of kick on and break into the championship starting team.
This Dublin game coming up on Saturday at half one in the World Cup final, it's nearly ideal preparation because they obviously missed out on the Kildare game due to the unplayable pitch. And to play Dublin this weekend and Tip and Cork to come the two following weekends, it sets it up nicely for going now.
It does, and it's a chance to just kind of, I suppose, it's to test yourself against a really good team. Like, without disrespect to Offaly, like they are a level off Dublin still, and they've really found it difficult to kind of get one over and Galway over the last 20 years. We'll say 20 something years at this point. So like Dublin will be a good test. I think Niall O'Callaghan is definitely, I'd say he's building for a right cut of the league this time round as well. So, he's like, he doesn't have the Nafina headache that he had last year. So it's a great opportunity to kind of look at the players that they have, and see. And I think we'll learn quite a lot about the panel at this weekend. And I think it's potentially to be a lovely double header if you're planning on staying up for the weekend. You could take in the World Cup game and then head to Croke Park the following day. I think it'll be a nice two games to kind of catch if your schedule allows.
Is the battle for Galway's number one? Do you think it's wide open this year? You just look at some of the keepers. Stephen O'Halloran played the last day from Crowell, Dara Walsh from Turlockmore, Derek Fahey, Aidan Murphy. Is it wide open at the minute?
Um, it probably is, but I would still say the likes of Dara and Ian are probably still a little bit ahead, just given their experience and things
Mm.
like that. And like I suppose experience from a keeper is huge. It is good to see the likes of Dara and Stephen involved, and I know Dara is probably very unfortunate that the Kildare game was pulled because he was down to start that game, and I suppose his Fitzgibbon commitments. I think he's with Mary I. Am I right in
Yeah,
saying?
Mary,
Yeah. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so like he will be getting game time in that as well, which will definitely stand him. And I think he had a really good game there not so long ago. I think it was reading a report, somebody was suggesting that he had a really good game. But I do think just for kind of experience, Paul, if we are going to kind of blood some of the fresher faces, think we're probably come league, maybe come to the latter stage of the league, come championship. I do think it'll probably be Darroch and probably Ian still. That's not to say the two boys can't put their hand up, and if they can produce some fantastic performances, they can definitely break in and get the starting jersey. But I would say in terms of selection, I do think that it'll probably be Darroch and Ian that'll probably get the nod in the early stages of the probably of the championship anyway, if not further afield.
Just as well, Galway Bay FM were reporting obviously a couple of the players who won't be involved in 2026. Obviously, David Burke and Jason Flynn have both retired, but some of the other players that have stepped away or are not involved this year include Kevin Cooney, Jack Grealish, Michael Garvey, Donal O'Shea, Shane Cooney, and Michael Wall. So a bit of change this year.
Yeah, bit of change, I suppose, a bit of freshness too. I think a lot of us in Galway hurling circles are hopeful for a bit of freshening up at the squad this year. I think it needs it, or just freshen up at the team this year. I think it needs it. I think it needs that injection of youth. And I suppose when one door closes on someone, another door opens for someone else. I'm sure there's plenty of those fresher faces that are hopeful of getting a chance of getting a run in the league this year, and maybe building from there. But some of them great servants for Galway, Paul, or as you've mentioned in the past, don't need to go through them. Like I think we all know what the likes of, say, David Burke has done for Galway hurling. But it's time now for kind of from new blood, new faces, and a chance for kind of a fresh looking Galway team.
Just finally, David, on the Fitz, University of Galway impressive win against UCD last week. ATU Galway play Setu Waterford this week, and if they're to get the win there, it will put them through to a Fitzgibbon Cup quarter final, just given three teams in the group. And if they get the win, then they'll have a straight shootout with Mary I next week. So it's there's a big opportunity there for them, but obviously great to see with when you look at University of Galway and ATU Galway, there being such I suppose large cohort of Galway players involved. You look at the University of Galway, you have 22 players. You look at ATU Galway, you have 23 players.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's great to have two third level institutes in the county playing at this high level, because the more exposure you get to the Fitzgibbon Cup, I think the better. I would kind of like, if you were ranking it, you'd kind of put the Fitzgibbon ahead of the under 20 championship, below the senior, obviously. So in terms of quality, so the only thing is like the condensed nature of the competition. It's really squeezed, and it's hard for players that are trying to serve two masters. You're looking at lads that are trying to break onto an inter-county setup, which is obviously the number one ambition, but they're also trying to play colleges and colleges hurling. I just wish that maybe there could be a bit more breathing space, or maybe some rules implemented that maybe, like, if you do line out with the college, you probably can't line out with the county team, maybe that week or something like that. Because I do, like, I'd be a huge advocate of the Fitzgibbon competition, having just watched it down through the years and covered it, and I think it's one of the best spectator sports out there, because there's very little actual tactics in it. But now that's not to take away from any of the managements, but it's a lot of teams that are kind of meshed together, that haven't had a whole lot of training opportunities with one another. It's very much go out and hurl and make the best team win. So think I think it's fantastic, and I'd like to see it maybe just given a little bit more breathing time in the calendar, or some kind of initiative that would allow Fitzgibbon players not to feel so pulled and dragged at this time of year.
Yeah, I was actually last week at Mary I in Situ Waterford, and Mary, I had five Galway starters, which included Dara Walsh, and Dara Whelan from Turlockmore, Connor and Owen Lawless from Athenry, and Donnacha Campbell from Captagal. Matthew Rosengrave from Beha was on the bench for them too. Um, UCD then David Lee from Clembridge, and Shane O'Brien and Dean Riley, both involved with the Garda College. Derek Fahey, Anthony Keady, and Jerry Kerr, they're obviously on this star-studded University of Limerick team. Um, it's some team, isn't it?
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah, like I think somebody was asking, like where would it go if you put it into an All Ireland series or something like that, or would it win the Galway Club Championship if they played in it? I think they'd go quite close. Sure, it's amazing, but like it's not a new phenomenon. UL they've had the likes of teams with like I think when I was in college down there, they had like the likes of Jason Ford and Tony Kelly and David Fitzgerald and all these lads, future multiple All Stars and things like that involved. It's not the new. I suppose the recruitment policy is actually must be really good down there. Whoever is handing out the scholarships, whatever, they definitely deserve a raise. But I think we kind of in Galway we're kind of doing a little bit more. It seems to be over the last years. We've got a nice large contingent of Offaly supporters, but might be no harm to kind of branch out to Munster as well. I know we'd Kean Lynch there for a few years as well, but it's a frightening team, Paul. But like it's like there's been teams in the past that have had quality similar to this, and it can be very difficult to kind of bring them all together. You wouldn't know, like you wouldn't know, like they're obviously firm favourites with Fitzgibbon, but stranger things have happened as well. They could fall along the way.
Yeah, even if you look back to Mary I catching that team a few years ago in the final, there's an example there. Just as well, Connacht and PPS Senior A Hurling Championship semi-finals. Rafels play Bridget's Loughrea Derby there on Thursday, January 22nd at 12:30. Venue to be confirmed. And Presat and I play Cork Community School on Tuesday, January 27th at 12:30. Venue to be confirmed there as well. But that's all we do have time for on today's show. A big best of luck to the Loughrea team and management this weekend, and hopefully they can get over the line. David, thanks a million for your time.
No bother, Paul.